Well, first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired. Sup, Holmes?
Beware your host, Jonathan Holmes.
This is already a high, tense, exciting episode. Sup, Holmes? Sinistar feeling so... Yeah, Porpentine is sweating. Porpentine, how are you? So nice to meet you.
I'm great. How are you?
I'm okay. We were almost getting to chat a little bit before the show started. We were talking a little bit about how I am bald now, for the most part.
Yeah, it really sucks. There's so much, people attach so much weight to hair, and I think I'm obviously biased. I'm pretty criminal when it comes to hair. So
your hair looks
please
great.
don't accuse me. Thank you. Yeah. It's a big source of my power.
Yeah, and it's great to channel that power while you have it. And when you lose it, like I did, you simply have to find other ways to feel powerful, which I'm working on.
Yeah, I
hopefully
think a lot about loss. Like, I mean, these things are inevitable, like aging and just all kinds of aesthetic degradations. So I don't know. It's really, I guess I was thinking about it, and there's like the actual physical things that suck about it, and then there's the way people will treat you, and that component of the way people treat you is probably even more scary than like the actual physical problems.
Yeah, absolutely, especially with hair, which you physically don't really need, but I felt my hair has always been different than most people around me. I used to have it up like Kid and Play. I don't know if you're familiar with that rap.
I can imagine. Because I don't know what it is, the imagining will be very different from what it is, but I can try.
Have you seen Eraserhead before?
Eraserhead? Yes. I'm familiar with the Eraserhead, yes.
My hair was just like that.
That sounds really cool.
Thank you. I live on in my mind, and whenever someone tells me I'm
phantom hair syndrome.
Yeah, pretty much. And then with someone like
Sinistar,
when Sinistar tells me that I'm charming, which he did right before the show started, I immediately think, no, I'm not. I'm bald now. Nobody likes me.
Sinistar knows what it's like to endure balding. Like Sinistar, I mean, that is a deep-seated root of Sinistar's insecurity.
And Mucor, I think it's pronounced, from Blasteroids. It's another of my arcade favorites. We haven't talked about you at all yet, though, and I apologize.
Why talk about Porpentine? Jeez.
And do you go by nicknames at all, or should I stick with just Porpentine?
I noticed that people call me like Porp or Porpy. Those are pretty good. Yeah.
And I feel this maybe unhealthy, certainly unwarranted closeness to you, because we've just now met, but I've been reading your tweets for as long as I possibly can, and you're so eloquent and expressive, and clearly not, I don't know, maybe you can help me find the word for it. There is a way people go about things that show you that they aren't concerned about fitting standards or any sort of preconceived methods to gain success. Those are my favorite people, generally speaking. And your tweets don't generally follow the Ashton Kutcher / Kanye West route towards tweet success. You will sometimes crack me up with tweets about wanting to die and being covered with poop.
Hilarious!
And I will truly think, I know exactly how that feels, and I know that person really meant that, because that's not the method to, that's not the surefire method to Twitter success, and yet here you are, a Twitter success, in my book anyway. So yes, your
thank
tweets.
You. That's kind.
That's it's a true fact. And one of the great things about you is that the barriers between the different things that you put out to people seem to be very slim in terms of who you are in your writing about games, the writing you do in games, and Twitter all give a very unified feeling. Was that intentional? Do you make considered effort to do that, or is it just
is it intentional for me to be unified?
Yeah, and to just always be you in so many other things that you do without kind of taking on different personas or anything.
I think I have a lot of different personas, but I think they're all me, is the thing. There's no
Interesting.
falsity in multiplicity. I mean, I think a lot of what I say can be contradictory, but that's how life is. It's a contradiction.
Huh. Interesting. Um, do you take on different personas consciously when you do different things for different
I wouldn't say
outlets?
it's
Like,
that. I wouldn't say it's that simple. I mean,
mm,
as like this, it's not like a Dr. Jekyll, Mrs. Hyde thing. I just
mhm,
think that I'm willing to let myself express contradictions and multiplicities instead of, because in this world, in this hard world, we can get bound into little, boxes by our peers, by society. They will say, "Oh, you are this kind of person. You are XXXX," um, you know. But and then it's squelching because no one is such a simple thing. People
mhm.
are uh, infinite if you let them. It's just we feel pressured to conform to. I don't want to say anything so simple as conform to society, but conform to the role that society sees us as being fit to fulfill,
Mm, mhm.
or the
And
persona that we first project. It's very against being mercurial and shifting.
hmm. And to be shifting is to be more genuine, to be more natural, you think?
Well, to be more capable of expressing how you feel at any given time,
Hmm.
because I think people can develop this model of this is who I am, this is how I express my feelings and whatnot. I don't know. I always felt way more intense than that. Like I tend to think in a very hyper processed way that's very like drilling down every second, just constantly making new connections. So I'd rather be a vessel for that than I don't know. But I mean, there's definitely a core of Porpentineness there. There's a core. It's
Mm,
like the way a tornado has like a nucleus. I mean, it doesn't have a nucleus, but let's imagine it did. Like
sure.
this power, this tightly wound power core, and but
Mm,
around it you have whirling all these different things because the tornado's doing what it needs to do. We should
mhm.
support that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get that core tornado feeling from everything that you've done that I've experienced so far, which
Mhm.
always gives me a sense of familiarity and honesty from what you're doing. I'm just kind of going on with a compliment again and forgetting to ask a question. It's the problem I sometimes have. People may not know who you are, though, unfortunately, for them.
What? How's that possible?
How could we start to introduce them to who you are and what you do and
I
why
mean, I
they should
guess
be paying
there's
attention?
concrete things I've done in this life. Like I have concrete things would be I write a weekly column for Rock Paper Shotgun where I cover free indie games from you might say like a feminist perspective, a radical perspective, the perspective of someone who has played games for a long time, but who's
Mm,
also female and queer.
mm,
And I've done that for over a year now, maybe averaging like 7 games a week or so. Um, and that's part of the work I do along with other editors on Free Indie Games, which is a site where we curate games in a very minimal, simplistic context. Just presenting the games and a snippet of the author's description of the game, along with downloads to it. And that was actually a really big success because it wasn't cluttered up with anything else. It was just finding games that a lot of other people aren't covering
mm,
and posting them, and then cross-posting our selections to Rock Paper Shotgun, where I can provide commentary that's maybe from a different perspective.
mm.
Besides that, though, I make games, and I make lots of games. I'm probably best known for the work I've done in Twine, like organizing, making Twine games, writing about it, kind of, which it's basically like a way to make text games in a simple way, and made a lot of games in that of a pretty experimental nature. And now I'm starting to do more graphical games right now.
And the last one I played was Armada.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the latest, though. Is that the latest graphical game that you put out?
The latest big one. I've made a few smaller ones since then, but it's the latest big one. It's it's the biggest thing I've made probably.
It's a wonderful game. I haven't beaten it yet. I don't even know if you can. When you
Hardcore
die...
gamers only. Hardcore gamers only.
when you... I've been thinking a lot about the term hardcore gamer and how sad I still am about it. Every day I get a little sadder about it, I think. Because I was thinking about Lamar from Revenge of the Nerds. Are you familiar with him at all? He is... Revenge of the Nerds is a comedy from the 1980s about nerds. And it tries to take every type of nerd and show them. So there's computer nerds.
Every element of nerd.
Yes! And poor hygiene nerds, which I didn't know existed at the time.
Oh, what a terrible stereotype.
Yeah, and there's one black nerd, and he shows no nerdy traits other than the fact that he's extremely effeminate. And I was like, that makes you a nerd to just be, cause
I don't know. This sounds pretty intense to me.
It is very intense. It's a movie I watched as a young boy and shaped my attitudes towards... Because I knew I was probably going to be a nerd from the start. I never liked sports.
You feel it in your bones. It's just inevitable. Can't escape destiny. You gotta roll with it.
Indeed. And Lamar was kind of a hero to me. Because I was like, I guess I can be a nerd and be effeminate and do whatever I want. And it's very freeing, the attitude that the nerds take on at the end. You should really watch this Revenge of the Nerds, Porpentine. I feel strongly about this.
Okay.
But since the start of this hardcore gaming idea, this social construct, this thing that people want to achieve, to be a hardcore gamer, to reverse the nerd stigma and take on this empowering, like, I'm hardcore.
Masculinity.
Yeah, it's the worst. And
yeah,
so
I mean, masculinity can be kind of poisonous. It's like, I don't know, yeah, I mean, there's this definite need to prove oneself. There's this huge pressure to conform to masculinity. And yeah, it's gross. It's not, don't do it. Kids, don't do it. Like, listen to Porpentine. I don't know, people should just do what they enjoy doing. Like, I really enjoy wearing nail polish and dresses, and I don't know, I wouldn't use the word nerd or geek to describe myself at all. I mean, let's deconstruct that. What does that mean? You like computers, you like technology. I mean, who doesn't these days, to be honest? I mean, it feels so outdated. And I mean, I feel like it's weird to cluster so much around. I mean, I think it makes sense. I mean, a lot of people retreated to video games, right? They retreated to video games because maybe society didn't accept them in some way. But in turn, nerd culture can replicate that by picking on people smaller down, which is how it always works. Everyone who gets picked on will pick on someone else. It's fuckery all the way down. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you and I, and hopefully everyone, can work together to reverse the fuckery and send good things up. Trickle up economy instead of
the fuckery over here out of the screen. Yeah.
Sure. I hope so. And
I don't know. I'd like to see people, I don't know, work on their masculinity, address their discomfort over certain things, because a lot of it is discomfort and fear of I don't know, acknowledging the things that are inside all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the things, again with the compliments, I haven't noticed you seeming very afraid to talk about the things that are inside you, gastrointestinally or otherwise. Do you ever feel afraid to talk about any of the things that are on your mind, or is it something that you've learned to kind of permanently vanquish?
castrated the fear. No, okay, so I think there's this tension. On one side you have, yeah, like, will I suffer a bad outcome from being honest about myself? And on the other side you have, am I going to die from this, from keeping it inside? Am I going to rot away and feel stagnant? Like, and that really sucks. So those two tensions fight against each other. And I feel like a lot of people, and a lot of women especially, can be judged for those things and be told to keep their feminine emotions or experiences inside, or anyone who has experiences that aren't, you know, jiving with the mainstream consensual reality. So I don't know. It was more about reaching the point where it hurts too much to keep things inside, and where I realized I wasn't defining myself. I wasn't letting myself define myself. If you don't let these things out and let them shape you in some way, you are just having someone else put their imprint on you, and you are not yourself.
And is one of your goals to impart yourself onto people for any particular reason, or is it purely cathartic to just constantly be... Yeah.
I am trying to start a death cult, but so if anyone wants to join that, definitely, you know, we have good benefits, you know, good dental, but honestly, like, in part, I really dislike crowd mentality. I dislike people's toxic relationship with celebrity. I think people should steal what they like about other people and apply it to themselves in a way that makes sense for them, which is what I do. I think if you put people as your role models, you'll be disappointed when they prove themselves to be human. A fan mentality is a love-hate mentality, and it can flip back and forth. It's not based on you as a human being, it's based on them projecting themselves on you and living vicariously through you, right? So, which means you can become the target for their own insecurity and self-hate. And as we know, people get killed by people who admire them. It's a common pattern, and it replicates itself in smaller ways. So I'd honestly like people to just have some self-respect and self-respect and a firm inner core, and learn techniques for making themselves stronger and building themselves up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, can you think of a time when, from personal experience, you can know that you didn't have that self-respect and inner core, and found yourself looking up to those who might have let you down in the long run?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of my life I didn't have a lot of self-respect, or it was more that I didn't really know who I was, so I kept trying on lots of different things, and they didn't really fit. Yeah, I mean, I spent a huge amount of my life in ignorance, and all I can do is lessen the amount of ignorance, which is a very syncretic process derived from a huge, and I don't think I can find it in any ideology or person. I can just find it in shards of many intersecting things that come to make up myself.
Sure. And if those things overlap in ways that are contradictory sometimes, it doesn't sound like there's any harm in that.
Yeah, no, people are fueled by contradictions. They're powered by contradictions. A lot of the things we admire are, I think we innately admire a lot of contradictions. We'll be like, oh, this person is so X, but they're doing Y. And that increases our admiration. That's a common, psychologically that's very common, is for us to value things that we find admirably contradictory.
Yeah, I see that in the ever-growing popular anti-hero character trope that seems to be more and more worshipped in American culture. Anyway.
Oh, anti-heroes. Anti-heroes is interesting. Anti-heroes, I think, the problem with anti-heroes, and let's bring noir in here a little bit, because noir is all about anti-heroes, yeah. So the problem with anti-heroes is that people often select the wrong characters or demographic to be anti-heroes, right? Like, I don't view like straight white cis men as having, being really knowing what alienation is about as much as say, I mean, I think the proper heroes of noir, the proper anti-heroes to explore alienation with, would be people of color, would be trans people, queers, women. I mean, like, that's alienation. That's what it's like to live in a city and actually be living a noir existence. Like, when people harass you on the street, that's the way to explore alienation.
But would Breaking Bad with a trans female lead, how would that resonate with people? I know
I think it'd be cool.
there's a lot of
fuck.
people. Yeah, me too.
I mean, I like Breaking Bad. It's one of my favorite shows. I think it's very masterfully done. I think I noticed some writers saying that there is a vein of shows though which allows anti-heroes to occupy roles of criminality, that they are able to kind of be tourists in it because they're white. You will not see black people embraced in the same roles, for instance. So there's a lot to deconstruct race-wise, gender-wise about anti-heroes, right? Like why are we finally embracing this, epic show about a white drug dealer? And it's a fucking great show. But there's just things to consider when we're making new shows and when we're moving forward.
Right. Yeah, and you are moving things forward. And playing Armada, I wasn't sure if I was playing as an anti-hero or not. And maybe I haven't gotten far enough into it. But I just want to let people know who haven't played it yet. What a fun game. Just fun. I love exploding into slime and causing trouble and discovering...
That was the whole... Oh, sorry, go on.
No. You.
Well, that was the whole point. I just wanted to make a fun game. Like, I wanted to... That's why the movement speed is so fast. It's everything I like about like action RPGs or adventure games. But for fun, like, I don't want to fucking trudge around. I want to be like, you go around quickly, there's fun colors everywhere, you talk to people. And combat is real time and you kill things, but there's not super much combat. A lot of it is just talking and running around and sliming things. Like, anytime you want, you can just press Z and you can spray slime everywhere, and that's fun. Like, it was just based around actually delivering something and not, I don't know, it's too much walking and too much slow text and too much boring fights in RPGs.
Yeah, the fights are exciting even though they're simple, and the text is exciting even though it's doesn't drag on. You get the quick, a lot of comedy.
It's pretty tweet length, the text, the dialogue.
Yeah, good point.
The combat is an interest of mine because at first I was coding kind of like this is me coding, like JRPG kind of system, and then I threw it out. It was taking too long. It was boring. It wasn't bringing anything. Instead of, okay, you're gonna run around, you're gonna slime things, and they'll die if you do it enough. High tech strategy there. But no, actually there is some thought to the movement. It is it's kind of like kiting based. It's kind of dance based. It's kind of moth-like, right? Like you are, like with a lot of the enemies, you can kind of circle around them, right? You can spin around them, and the movement speed's fast enough to do this. You just go around and you're spraying slime, and you're basically doing all these pirouettes around people until they die, and you're just trying to be far away enough not to get damaged, and you're trying to be close enough to throw slime at them. So it is this tension that's in all the combat.
Yeah. You deconstructed it. Thank you. And it feels skill-based without being punishing, and it harkens back to my favorite moments in Miss Pac-Man a lot of the time, actually.
Another powerful female icon.
Indeed.
I never played Miss Pac-Man.
You didn't?
Did she shoot slime?
She did not, which is
Regrettable.
minus points for her.
But
But it does
was
have
that
a
era.
dance-like rhythm to it, and a skill when if you have enough quarters, you can accept the punishment and just enjoy the moment. It's fast-paced enough that you're feel the tension that kind of gets you out of your reality, which speaks to the question: was it kind of a power fantasy for you to make Armada, or was it autobiographical?
What's the
or
power
both?
fantasy?
So I guess the fantasy would be to be able to always be dancing, to be able to
And always
exude,
be sliming.
yeah, in every direction. It's such a powerful
Well,
thing. You don't even have to aim; you just make
that
it.
wouldn't be a traditional power fantasy. I mean, yeah, when we think power fantasy, we think wearing a pink dress and spinning around spraying slime, classic power fantasy. But it's definitely, I think, a fun fantasy. I mean, yeah, I think I would like to see that be the new power fantasy. I'd like to see, it's more of an exaltation fantasy. It's a hallucinogenic femme fantasy. Uh, it's about. It reminds me more of like magical girl shit than just. I mean, a way to demonstrate power in a way I find consonant with my idea of femininity, my
And do you see
personal feminine expression.
and do you see slime and your personal feeling of femininity being in any way connected?
Oh, definitely. I've done photo shoots before where I was covered in slime. Slime praxis, real slime. I don't fuck around. Um, I mean, slime is great. You can make it in your home with just common everyday ingredients, I don't know. Slime is really great. It's so colorful and fun.
It's not the first time we've brought it up on the show, actually. I don't know if
Really?
you're familiar. Uh-huh. One of the most popular episodes of the show was with Mariel Cartwright, who did the animation, or was the animation lead on Skullgirls. And she likes to draw slime girls from time to time. And I've hoped that she would put a slime girl in the next Skullgirls, but she couldn't commit.
That's really
I feel like
sad.
that she couldn't commit.
It's just sad there's no slime girl there.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think it is about the slime that resonates with you and with others on such a level?
Gosh, I guess there's multiple terms. There's like, for me, I usually envision it as being like a person who sprays slime everywhere. But I think some people are into goo girls, which are girls made entirely of slime or goo, which you'll find a lot of porn of.
Really?
Yeah, no, it's a huge sexual interest for a lot of people. I wouldn't say it's on. I don't know. For me, it was definitely like an aesthetic thing in Armada. But if people want to get off to my game, like they're more than welcome to. Like please.
Sure. It's and this speaks to a larger question. You can't control how your work is going to be interpreted, or what people are going to enjoy about it, or not enjoy, or misunderstand. Do you ever feel frustrated? Yeah, is that something that has taken some time to get used to? Are you used to it now? Or is it something that you feel at peace with and always have been?
Whether I can control people's brains when they play my game? That would be pretty interesting. I mean, I guess people's reactions, I don't know. I've had a lot of really great reactions. Yeah, I think they inspire a pretty love-hate relationship, just like me. But that kind of ties back into like what we were talking about before, which is it's more like right there. It was more like this like self-expression, like sincerity. It opens you up a lot. It's a semi-permeable membrane. It opens you up so much to good and bad things. So you definitely got to be vigilant. But no, I mean, I don't know. People can do whatever the fuck they want with my games. Like, love them or hate them, it's not my problem. I was satisfied making them.
Mm-hmm. And is that your favorite part of the process, is creating, or is it, I'm assuming it's different for every project, but generally speaking, is it the act of doing, or is it the act of completing and then kind of looking at the reaction, or I don't know. Speak to that in general, if you don't mind. Love to hear that is for you.
Well, I'd say that the making part can fucking suck, especially when you know it's, especially when you've committed to something, and you got to do all this work on it, and it's just hanging around your neck like an albatross, and it's just dragging you down. And you've gone too far to scrap the project. So it's definitely like seeing people's reactions to it. Because then there's like the little, honeymoon period, the first 10%, like, oh, well, this is cool, huh? It's like terror, grief, sadness, other 90%. I don't know. I'm working on it. The more you create, the more you develop techniques to alleviate the pains of creation, right? You develop methodologies. You can recycle code. You can feel more confident with your process, right? Like, after making a bunch of Twine games and Game Maker games, I just started getting more comfortable. You can finally start performing with it being virtuoso.
Yeah, so virtuosos, from what I'm told, often don't have to think particularly hard. Their instincts and their skill kind of come together to create before they're totally aware of what's happening. But to do that in game development, I would imagine would be pretty difficult. What with the slowness and the plodding nature of it compared to guitar playing or violin or something.
Well, I think all those things require so much practice as well. If you think about it, just many hours. I don't know. I mean, I feel like people can have certain innate proficiencies, but honestly, like, a lot of it is just practice and environment and being in a place where you can create. I don't know, creation is something I think a lot about. It can be a huge struggle. So I'd say, like, work on ways to create that don't harm you, that make sense for you. Like, sometimes I would find myself fighting something or having trouble with something, and I realized it was because I was making in a way that was the way I thought it was supposed to be, but it didn't have anything to do with, like, the actual thing I wanted to make.
Mm-hmm. So was it following the guidelines of craft kind of leading you away from the spark that got you creating in the first place?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people can come to game development and be like, oh, like, I want to, like, make this style of game because I like it a lot, but it's not that easy. A lot of traditional mechanics are really hard to recreate. Like, I create around my weaknesses. I turn things that I just get bored by into strengths. Like, okay, I'm gonna spray slime as combat. I'm not interested in recreating this laborious, familiar system. A lot of my games could be described as me working around my weaknesses, to be honest.
Interesting. Have you ever felt like you made a big mistake in the development of a game that changed the way you made games after that mistake? Something that really hit you as something you regretted?
Like, a game I've made that is, like, shameful to me right now, that it's just vile and full of...
or at least maybe not that bad, but like, I'll run a red light every once in a while, and I'll be like, oh, that was
the red light of game development, the DUI of game development. No, I don't know. I would say that I recognize flaws or incompletenesses in my prior games, right? But I recognize them as part of the learning process. I recognize them as a step that got me closer to what I wanted to make. So I don't know. I try not to be critical about it.
That makes sense.
They're very handmade. They're like, a lot of my games are like falling apart. Armada it's not like spaghetti code. It's like a spaghetti death maze tower spire panopticon. It's like finishing Armada was like putting like the last card on top of the card tower. I don't know. It's ridiculous. I started a while ago. I was so it's just the combination of a lot of different influences over time.
What were some of those influences?
Well, you know, I probably, if I'm going to be honest, I think I started when I saw Space Funeral by the Catamites. I was like, oh wow, this is this handmade, trashy kind of thing where that is like interesting and different, but at the same time, it's not. It doesn't look like it was made in a time-consuming sense, right? Like it wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna make the perfect JRPG sword, and I'm gonna make the perfect dungeon tile, and I'm gonna make the perfect vines, because video games have vines. It was more like, it just inspired me to make a game where it's like, okay, for the most of the art assets in this game, I'm going to spend 10 or 30 seconds drawing this. That's most of the art style in Armada. Sometimes I would really like something, and I would spend more time on it. But honestly, yeah, it was, you know, something to make that worked with my life, you know, a life often interrupted and where I'm dealing with lots of other shit.
So the style speaks to the thinking that went into creating it, and maybe speaks something to what it was like to make it. So you feel like you're alongside the creator of it. And
you can definitely see my fingerprints on it.
Yeah, absolutely. What gave you the idea? Was it your idea to add eyeballs that are sometimes in the background and blink? Because that really...
You mean the eyeballs on the trees?
Uh-huh. It really made me feel like
yeah. Go on. What did it make you feel? What did it make you feel deep inside?
It made me feel like I was in trouble, but fun trouble. That I was working with someone...
That's a really good description of my games.
Oh, good, because that's what I get from. That's why I keep coming back. It's interesting to be able to create work that is both reliable but unpredictable, because I know it's going to be a Porpentine feeling. But what exactly that feeling is going to be...
Porpentine feeling. About the eyeballs on the trees.
Yes, please.
Yeah, no, I think one of the things that inspired me to put the eyeballs on the trees was, you know, Sonic Spinball for the classic game console Sega Genesis.
I sure do.
Cool. Okay, so Sonic Spinball is my favorite Sonic game, even though it's nothing like the gameplay of the other Sonic games, because it has, I don't know, the graphics are really crunchy. It has lots of slime and metal parts, and you are like trying to get these gems, these big ass. See, and it doesn't fuck around. These are big ass fucking gems, right? These are big ass fucking emeralds, crystals, gems. You know, let's not be semantic here. Semantic. So you try to hit things to make slime pour out, and the gems to get the gems, I guess. But anyways, there are like cool eyeballs on the level that will like blink and open up, I think.
Really?
Just like, I think on the level, like, I mean, gosh, let me look that shit up, like.
While you do, I'll tell you my experience with that game.
Yeah, break it down.
I think I got to the second level once. I would play that first level for days, and it never got old. I don't know why.
Sonic Spinball?
Yeah, I would play the first level of Sonic Spinball for days straight and never be able to get through it. But it felt fair, so I knew it was possible to get through it.
This is your rightful, you know, place on Earth. Sonic Spinball second level limbo.
First level, yeah, and it's hellish and adorable at the same time.
Just like me.
And did you play that game when it first came out? I can't help but age you a little bit younger than me. I'm 36.
I'm 26.
Oh, are you? 10 years younger. Ah, you could be my daughter if I was very proactive.
Yeah. You know, I like to think of myself as everyone's daughter. You know.
So did you play?
I don't know.
Was that game must have come out when you were like, I want to say 7 or 8 or something. Does that sound about right?
I don't know. I really wasn't paying attention at the time. I had bigger fish to fry. But I did play, like console-wise, I did play some Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo. I think Super Mario RPG was my favorite for the Super Nintendo, and Sonic Spinball and Romance of the Three Kingdoms was my favorite for Sega Genesis. But I honestly spent most of my time, like, in many children's lives, there is a special console into which they pour all their trauma and alienation and childhood abuse and isolation. And for me, that was the Nintendo 64. And I don't know, I spent a lot of time, I guess, being influenced and losing myself inside the low poly wonders of such hit games as Ocarina of Time, Return to Zelda, or Majora's Mask game, and the Banjo, the Kazooie, stuff like that, Mischief Makers. I especially liked Ocarina of Time, the way it provided this kind of adventurous, exploratory world that was still extremely melancholy, because that, like, kind of fit with, I don't know, it struck me very deeply.
It hit me at the wrong time, unfortunately, being 10 years your senior when Ocarina of Time came out.
If you come back to N64 shit, I think it's definitely our experiences of playing games are hugely influenced by what was going on as a kid. This lens, you know, this desert island mentality, which informs our childhood memories and everything else. And I wouldn't expect other people to get the same things out of it, or to receive the same amplified messages of loneliness and whatnot, and strange beauty. What was it for you? Do you have any games like that left you with a certain feeling?
Oh, sure. I could go on and on about it. I want to stay on Ocarina of Time for a moment.
Okay, yeah, totally.
That's okay. It lost me because I had kind of physically gone through my best transformations already. I was, I think, 24 or so, and my hair had already started to go a little bit, and I knew I was on the way out. So a game about the magic of transformation from a child to an adult would have really resonated with me. I'm guessing at like 12 or 13, because it was exciting to be empowered by that. But instead, changing shape, I was already wistful for my youth, which is why Majora's Mask resonated with me so deeply. It was about being a kid, but being able to transform to things that were better than people, and to get to know people from different cultures.
Rock people, rock people, seed people.
Yeah, exactly. If Ocarina of Time is about puberty, I see Majora's Mask being about both death and race relations, which are two things I was in love with in the 20s. In my 20s, I should say. Oh, I'm so jealous of your hair. You're doing so many cool things with it. I don't have any at all.
It's shaped with slime, you know.
Man, slime on a bald head just looks like shinier head. Shiny, wet head.
Maybe you could probably wear like an octopus as a wig. That's probably what I'll do when my hair falls out, you know. Well, I would say Majora's Mask is a very, very, very dark game. I think the actual gameplay doesn't hold up as well at this point, but yeah, it's so dark. Like, your transformations aren't happy transformations. Like, oh, cool, I got the bunny magic, and I'm a bunny now. I'm gonna hit things with my bunny sword. Instead, it's like
scream in pain every time, yeah.
What?
Every time you transform, it's
you're screaming. You're in pain, which is what transformation can be like. You know, it hurts. It really hurts. And you are transforming using the spirits of dead people, which I guess is your way to honor them, perhaps, and access doors you can't access, which is the best way to honor the dead, is by getting to new areas.
And you're an imposter in all these different cultures.
Oh yeah, like you're really like I think there's a lot of appropriation of Deku culture that is unexamined there.
I am both serious and joking about this at the same time.
I think serious and joking describes my entire life.
Me too. Some of my favorite things. As a youth, music could never truly please me unless it made me sad and laugh at the same time. Like a lot of New Order. I don't know if you ever listened to them.
I have listened to New Order.
Yeah? What do you think?
You know, yeah. I like a lot of 80s music because it's very positive, but in a really interesting way. Like I really like synth. Actually, music is a good topic to bring up because music powers me. Music is influential to all my games, right? Like after most of my Twine games, I list the music I was listening to, right? It's like my games are a combination mixtape game. Music is a way for me to feel emotion when I'm just too drained of emotion by the rest of my life. It's transcendent for me. I get really into music. So, like, I guess the music defining me right now would be, if I had to look at genres, Witch House, some vaporwave, a lot of R&B, yeah, a lot of female singers and vocalists. Let's see, what am I listening to right now? I'm listening to Mount Kimby. I'm listening to Monotrix, Point Never, Sleigh Bells. Lots of chopped and screwed, pitch shifted remixes of pop songs. Nike 7 Up, Marina and the Diamonds, and Blood Orange.
Have you ever heard the Vib Ribbon soundtrack?
Vib Ribbon?
I'm going to send that to you, Porpentine, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And feel free to not like. Feel no guilt if you say don't like. I won't be hurt.
I know, yeah.
I want to try to share it with you anyway. We have barely talked about, man, this has been a stream of consciousness. Me just excited to talk to you, us not staying on any particular topic for very long, and we're already an hour in, and questions have come in. But I want to make sure if there's anything you wanted to make sure people know about you or know about what you're doing, that we talk about it before we delve into the questions, because they can easily be eaten up in a half hour. We talked about Armada at least.
Yeah, play Armada, play and look at the manual. It has a lot of great artists, and I'm really grateful to all the musicians who donated their music to the project, which enabled me to finish in the first place, because I made the game and then I didn't have music. And then I was like, oh shit, the music I'm getting now is so cool that I have to make the game even cooler. So, let's see, Brenda Neotanami, Ben Esposito, Kodak, Cameo, and me were the music composers, and I'm really grateful to all of them, because honestly, the collaboration was very decentralized, because I have to have a lot of creative control. So I made the game, and then I looked for music that was already made, and which was cool because it could give people a second look at music that maybe they didn't look at before. And I looked at people who were making cool music, but who weren't blowing up or anything. So I don't know. It was cool.
Which song did you write yourself, or songs did you write yourself?
I generated a few songs. I did the song in the shaft, the city shaft. I did a remix, or it's more of a destruction. I destroyed a song by Rihanna, Pour It Up, which is one of my probably my favorite song by her, and a powerful message to women everywhere, I feel. And that's the song you hear playing in the city, that's just pounding you, and it's just static, and it's just hyper intense. Anyway,
was that a first for you to make music for one of your games?
Basically, yeah. I mean, I've generated a lot of stuff before with Wolfram tones, or I don't know, other programs, but I don't know. They definitely did the bulk of the music. Besides that, the other composers. I was definitely did the least amount of songs.
Huh. Well, I hope you keep going with it. It seems to come naturally to you to some degree. It certainly sounds natural in the game.
Thank you.
I really love the music a lot in the whole game.
Yeah, I really love the soundtrack. I don't know, being able to make my own stuff is important. Having as many skills as possible, because it means more autonomy. Not that collaboration isn't super rewarding, I don't know. Yeah, what else? What else? I guess I would say, what else is going on for me right now? I'm doing a lot of different things, but they're shrouded in mystery and darkness.
Are
I'd
you
like to
gonna?
keep I'd like to keep making things that weren't uh, easily definable. I would like to keep working in different formats. The way I get most of my artistic funding right now is through Patreon, which I assume you know of.
Only, it actually was you who introduced me to it, and then I found that a lot of my favorite game developers are on there. I think
Yeah,
people
it's
should
really
definitely-
cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's basically a way for people to pledge a certain amount of money to uh, an artist, and whenever an artist makes something, they get that amount of money. So you could pledge $5. So every time someone makes a song, for instance, they get $5 plus whatever everyone else is donating, which is cool because it's like it reverses the things, and instead it reverses the normal process. And instead, artists can make on their own schedule, right? Like they can, they're not bound to, all these other things. Instead, it's like, okay, I'm moved by the spirit to make this at this point in time, and then I'll get money for making it then. So yeah, that's been the main way I've been supported.
Has it been pretty effective so far?
People have been really nice, really generous. It enabled me to pay rent and buy food and clothing and medical expenses. So yeah, it's been invaluable.
That's awesome. I hope it keeps growing, and I assume that it would. As long as you keep making things, and you strike me as someone who probably couldn't stop making things and stay emotionally healthy.
It's a curse.
If you wanted to.
I'm
Well,
always
what's-
like, I'm just always like, God, finally I'm done with this. When I made Armada, it's like, it's done. The last major project is done. It's so scary. Like, I don't know. Muses are more like scary banshees, right? Like, it's to be saddled with something that you feel you must create. It can be inconvenient.
Yeah, it's an itch that's very, very difficult to scratch, and then once you've scratched it, you usually just develop a new itch somewhere that you got to start scratching. That seems
really
to be your
itchy
pattern.
person. I'm a giant clam shaped like a woman. Yeah, full of pearls.
Yeah, for the rest of us. But it's so hard to admire your own pearls when you're just trying to pick
It's
them
really
off.
hard to look at your own art, right? It's really hard. Like, you spend so much time immersed in it. It's like you're a worm digging inside an apple or some other fruit. I mean, apples kind of suck. I mean, sorry. Like, I know that's controversial, but
I've been saying that for years, actually. Apple suck. Let's continue. I'm sorry.
so you drill so deep inside it that you can't fucking see anywhere else. And only after a period of time can I even revisit those things and successfully be like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. And I have
That's
to rely
good.
on other people's reactions.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say or ask before we do get to the questions, which we really should. But I am selfishly wanting to ask my own questions. You make this work that you are aware there's no precedent for kind of mainstream success or financial success.
Yeah.
Sounds like part of you can't help but make it. Part of you perhaps doesn't want to even pursue potential mainstream success because you don't value it or maybe don't even like it. Is that an internal conflict for you, though, to know that all this hard work you're putting into things may reach a limited audience just because it's so potentially foreign to them culturally or otherwise?
If I was making something else, what would be the point for me of making something that reached more people but didn't bring me joy or speak to me? I think a lot of people do respond to it. I would like to see a lot of people enjoy these things. I'm very aware of people's perceptions of my art, but I don't know. Like you say, there's no choice.
Mm-hmm. Does part of you think, well, eventually the world will come around and see that Porpentine is the Lady Gaga of video game development, and you'll suddenly... No, I don't know if you like Lady Gaga.
Oh, I like some of her songs. but I wouldn't compare myself to Lady Gaga at all. I'd
Beyonce?
say I don't think that'd be appropriate comparison either. I think Beyonce is amazing, but I think I'd probably compare myself to the Porpentine of Porpentines. Like, I mean, I think women get compared to each other a lot, and I don't agree with it at all. I think it's often, it can come from a bad place, and I'd rather people recognize female artists on their own merits and like examine what that person is doing instead of comparing them and tokenizing themselves or tokenizing them.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense.
I would like all 7.1 billion people in the world to play my games. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
like
do you feel? Is there the potential you feel for that to happen?
No.
Or at least, but at the same token, a lot more people are playing your games now than they did when you started.
It's weird. It's weird. I've actually gotten. People have been really nice. I actually won several of the highest awards in my field, despite just doing. I don't know. There are people who recognize these things. I won 2 XYZZY awards, which I think is the highest interactive fiction awards you can win. I won the Indie Kid Special Recognition Award for Twine, my Twine games, my work in Twine. And there's the IGF thing, obviously, where like someone's Richard Hoffmeyer spray painted out his own game that won an IGF award or a billion and put my game in there instead, which was really kind. So it's definitely love-hate. Like there's a huge amount of extremely disparate reactions to my work, and all I can do is keep making.
Well, I have hope
it gives me life.
Is it selfish of me? Is it me projecting or being out of place to want someday to play the next big N64 game made by Porpentine?
I would love to make the next N64 game. I would love to.
And I don't see any reason why we can't go back to that style and that console through emulation.
Actually, I mean, a lot of people I think are playing with that. Like, I think people are playing with low poly stuff, doing stuff in Unity. I know like Goblet Grotto or Crypt World are 2 games that I like a lot because they kind of have that feel, but just filtered again into this whole weird thing. I don't know. Play Goblet Grotto, play Crypt Worlds. But yeah, you said there were questions.
Oh, sure. There are questions. We should get to them. From Stephen Wise. Stephen Wise asks, tell us about that sign and what you thought of the event of Hoffmeyer spraying Howling Dogs on it. What was going on there? And you alluded to that a little bit. But had you met Richard before that? And regardless of that, no.
Not really.
And
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I met him the day before. I think it happened independent of him knowing me. I guess apparently he just was really moved by the game. He said it was very dear to him. And like the thing is, Howling Dogs was made in the default look of Twine. It was a pretty raw, handcrafted product, like a lot of things I make. So it was just really cool that he took that narrative and he's like, okay, Cart Life has seen enough, and I want to put this thing that the culture of GDC and the culture of games is not recognizing, and I want to put it here. Mm-hmm. So that's a kind of direct action that I very admire. I found it very kind. I was deeply moved. And I'm interested in those acts of beauty and bravery in this changing culture. I think there's going to be a lot of bravery and a lot of intensity needed in these trying times.
And I hope they're rewarded. Do you get the sense that, because I felt Richard hopefully was rewarded by his act in that it got a lot of positive press, even more people paid attention to his game and your game. It was such a genuine act that I feel like people are very hungry for anyone in these days where we're sold things by people who are convinced that they know exactly how to get our money without actually speaking to us in any real way. I'm hoping those acts continue to get rewarded, but what do you think? Do you see things getting better or worse in that regard?
I think I think there can be recognition of things. I think a lot of brave things that people do are ultimately erased and forgotten, though. I think we don't have a criteria for recognizing a lot of the valuable things that go on. I think women's contributions to games, especially, we just don't have a way to value those. You have a lot of women doing work, pushing things forward, and they're just simply taken for granted. So I think some things will attract more publicity than others. And I think 90% of the things just get drowned beneath the waves. I would like people to change their perspectives, to change their perceptions and value systems in order to recognize the contributions of women, the contributions of people who aren't normally recognized.
Absolutely.
Because it's not just one big thing. It's not just one big howling dogs thing. It's what happens every day in a person's life, right? It's how we treat them and support them every single day.
Absolutely. So maybe, hopefully, these bursts of incident where people see, well, women in games are to be not only recognized but supported, and trying to think of words that are just like the words you just used, but why should I do that? Because you just used them. We're getting bursts of that, but I wonder when it'll become kind of a cultural norm.
Many people are driven by very simple psychology, sadly. Many people, there's very little realistic perception of the dynamics that women face in games or in any medium or in life. I don't know. We live in dark times. All times are dark times.
I suppose so. I hope they're getting better.
But when it's the darkest, that's when the light is the brightest. Like, you know.
Yeah, it's true. I'll get to some more questions though before I am a jerk and ignore them. Net Terrorist asks Porpentine.
Oh my god.
If you are a designer of a AAA budget game, what would that game be like?
Well, one option would be I would make kind of like I make a cross of like Pokemon with Dota, and in between there'd be like a SimCity Dwarf Fortress style like system where you could cultivate fans and get stuff, and like I don't know, gosh, like if I had that much money, I would buy hormones for like thousands of trans people, and I would buy housing for trans people. Honestly, a lot of the games I've made have been on I feel like a lot of people are making games on just the cost of living. I feel that there are lots of ways to make games for much cheaper. I don't think I'd ever end up making something that was like, I mean, AAA is a monstrosity, right? It's like Blockbuster. It's like this gargantuan colossus. It's just lurching onward even after it's dead. I'm more interested in the kind of games I would make if I had a happy environment, if I had means. And I mean, that's what I'm working towards. I'm trying to learn what my art looks like when I'm happy and when I'm making like a triangle, because I guess triangles represent like completeness or whatever, whatever. I'm just trying to be the best Porpentine I can be, so I can make art that is flowing from a pure artisan spring.
Mm-hmm. And it would be interesting to see what kind of art you made once you get to a point where the types of day-to-day struggles you have now aren't as pressing. I would hope and I would guess that in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, you'll be in a very different place.
I hope
I'd
so.
like to.
In a coffin. No, okay. Like, I think a lot of struggles I have transmuted into good experiences, like Crystal Warrior Kesha, which is one of my most popular Twine games. was made when I was being harassed a lot. I mean, nothing has changed. Like, or like, but at the same time, we can't fall into this system where we're like adulating, where we're praising, where we're raising up constant pain, because honestly, sometimes it'll make something like Crystal Warrior Kesha, but most of the time it just leaves you broken and unable to function. So I'm just trying to figure out ways in which to live my life.
Mhm. Yeah, I suppose we all are. But you on a
Truly.
much more public, you in a way that's more public than most on so
I
many
suppose
levels.
so. I suppose so.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just become commonplace to you at this point, or whether did you feel kind of at home in putting so much of
Cyberspace?
yourself? Yeah,
Can
on
we
the
use the
net.
term? Let's use this term cyberspace, please. Let's keep it respectful. I feel like I offload a lot of myself on the internet because I want to present who I am, to find others who are like me or harmonious with me. I would like to also not die as an anonymous trans woman. I would like to offload my consciousness onto the internet and say this is who I am. Because I don't know, like it can be easy to just languish in nothingness. I like to feel alive. I feel that if you balance your URL with your IRL, that can be a good way to feel alive. You just can't let one dominate over the other, right? I mean, I think a lot about selfies. I think a lot about selfies and
Maybe
selfies.
What if your AAA game was about the best parts of your life, including selfies, and it was just a purely autobiographical, extremely realistic graphics?
No,
1080p.
no. I don't know.
What?
I
No,
love
your graphics are great.
my graphics, like
Yeah.
these graphics.
Yeah, sure. It's great graphics.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I don't know. I really like cartoonish, kind of like dissonant graphics. Even I like ugly, hideous graphics. I like MS Paint graphics. I basically drew all my art in MS Paint. I mean,
It's funny, a couple guests ago we had David Escalante on the show, who made I Get This Call Every Day, an autobiographical game about his terrible job, and he got accused of making his graphics in MS Paint. He was kind of hurt by that.
wear it like a badge of pride. You know, MS Paint is one of the foremost artistic mediums of this or any century.
I think about what people would have thought it 200 years ago, even 100 years ago. They
God,
would
yeah,
have
imagine if
amazing.
Michelangelo had MS Paint. You know, imagine. Imagine if the Sistine Chapel was done in MS Paint. These are what histories and dreams is made of, you know, fantasy.
I might like it more. I was thinking this morning when I was brushing my teeth about how I wish there were separate museums, and please feel free to get as annoyed with this idea as you like, because I'm not personally attached to it. But I want different museums for craft and stuff that's focused on art. Stuff that's just, look how fancy the shine is on the head of that baby, paintings. And then museums that are about the actual ideas and the risks and the inspirations that went into creating it,
Well,
outside of just showing off your
I don't
technique.
think it could be that simple, though. I think a lot of art can combine both, like combine craft and feeling. And honestly, like, our definitions of craft differ widely. Like, is there not MS Paint craft at this point?
There probably is. In fact, I can think of some off the top of my head that I was very impressed with in terms of the technique behind it. So, good.
Yeah,
But
I mean, I don't
guess-
really waste any time thinking about art. Like, God, fuck art. Just, I'm more interested in making stuff. Those definitions and categories are pretty useless to me.
Yeah, me too. It's something I've.
Although my games are
yeah.
going to be shown in the Museum of the Moving Image, for a couple months over in New York.
Oh, really?
All the Indiecade winners are being shown in that museum for a while. So you'll see Porpentine in the museum in my continued bizarre, sure to be destructive dichotomy of weird recognition and
That's
anti-recognition.
What kind of which games are going to be there?
Ultra Business Tycoon 3, Crystal Warrior, Kesha, Parasite, Howling Dogs. It was a compilation. It was a compilation of games.
And how
Few
will
more.
the Twine games be? Because I was also in.
It is a
thinking
thing of
about-
presentation, because when you have graphical games, it's very simple and easy to be like, okay, well, look at all these shiny colors. Both text games, like, who the fuck wants to go to a museum and sit there playing some boring-ass text game? Not me. Like, fuck. I don't know. I think at a festival they lured people into Crystal Warrior Kesha by putting glitter on the mic on the headphones, and I don't know. They're gonna have a setup. I've been talking to them about it, but honestly, at the end of the day, it's just better to go home, curl up, in your blankets with a nice cup of tea, maybe wear a nice dress if you want, and play my games, and just introspect. The Twine games, I'd say, are introspective. As I've been making more graphical games, there are much more games you can play with people, and it's been really fun to like watch people die in my games, which is the best part of making graphical games, is you can watch people just die and suffer.
and enjoy it along with them. And it is great when you can make a game that is fun to do. Those are usually my games. I would be remiss if I didn't ask about the difference in creating and also the difference in expectation in terms of how people are going to receive your graphical games and your Twine games. To me, it's always been very strange that if you offer Twine to people, which is a language everyone knows, which is reading, they might often be like, oh, I can't play a reading game, even though it's like one sentence at a time. They'll be quite off-put to it, where if you offer them this new visual language, they'll often be more quick to embrace it, at least if they're, the person who considers themselves kind of well-versed or interested in video games. So can you talk about the differences in process in creating those two, and also the differences in expectation for how they're going to go over?
I don't have any expectations. I'd say that working with graphical games is a way for me to process my feelings of color and music and bring these things that I just wasn't able to do with textual games. I mean, you can do a lot with Twine. You can just break it apart, but I'm at a point in my life where I really want to be focusing on colors and motion. I'd like to make more games involving dancing and unusual movements.
Huh, interesting. What can you talk about? Are you interested
I love
in talking
dancing.
about? Yeah? Have you always loved dancing?
I learned to love it. I mean, I think there are a lot of innate capacities that we're taught to kind of like ignore about ourselves. Like I love talking, and I love singing, and I love dancing. And we're taught to repress those qualities. I went dancing a couple weeks ago at this queer club, and it was great. I've always loved just dancing with incredibly loud music and getting sweaty and just completely losing myself. I feel so completely free.
One of the most interesting times in my life was a contact improvisation class, and I've always been self-conscious and feel terrible when I dance. And I passive-aggressively dance badly, just to show everyone I didn't care what they thought, but
I think a lot of
obviously
people
I
can
did.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ironic protection is something that a lot of us, can dwell behind. And it is intimidating. It's like, oh, how do I dance? What's the preferable way to dance? I still have to get pretty drunk to go dancing in public. I don't know. I just follow my body.
It sounds like when you absolutely. It sounds like that feeling you have when the dancing comes together perfectly and you are disinhibited and truly yourself and showing it. It's something you want to show in games, which I would greatly look forward to seeing more of. I guess a really good video. Yeah, I guess we'll see. More questions in Monkey No Hito asks, what's one thing to keep in mind when representing gender, or anyone really, in games? Huh.
Listen to the actual people involved. Like, if you're going to talk about it, one, if possible, let that person talk about it. Two, if you're going to be advocating for them, be advocating from, I don't know, let those people, and it's not just taking any one person's opinion. I think you should be studying a wide variety of different people's opinion within a marginalized group. But yeah, no one can really speak for marginalized people except themselves.
And like you were saying before, every woman is completely different from the last, and to try to
just
put
like
them
everyone
together.
else.
Sure. But when you've been marginalized, as women have been, those groupings are all the more potentially dangerous and toxic, whereas more privileged folks like myself don't have to. I sometimes get a little off-put when I'm grouped together with other bald guys. Like, a lot of people think I look just like the Limes guy.
Doesn't make sense, you know. And it erases people's individual personalities and qualities.
Yeah. It's bothersome.
Like,
I try
don't
not to.
compare me to other trans people or women, because one, that comparison can often be used to put down and raise up someone else instead of raising up both people. Instead, compare me to Porpentine. Like I said, there is no one like me. Like, I'm the only person who can be myself. Like, if you're going to talk about me, focus on who I am.
And by doing so, we'll hopefully get rid of some of these ways we rate and compare, and in doing so objectify people in terms of having some standard they're supposed to meet. Like Lady Gaga, for instance, which was my misstep from earlier today.
It's okay. I mean, I think it's like sometimes we can be like, oh, this person reminds me of that. But, and I mean, I might do it sometimes, but ultimately it's just not been that helpful, and it's been more helpful for me to just be like, actually, it's kind of a way to skip out of actually deconstructing and analyzing what they're doing, which is a pitfall I have to avoid on my column at RPS a lot of the time. When I'm trying to find ways to critique and analyze all these different games, it can be easy to hand-wave these things away. In games, journalism, and writing, it can be easy to just be like, oh, this is so crazy, this is so wacky, or just like, oh, this is like X crossed with Y. But is that not... That can kind of be useful sometimes to let people know what they're getting into, but a lot of the time it's a way to skip out of actually analyzing each individual element.
Sure. Well, I guess that's labeling in a nutshell. It kind of it's convenient and it's fast, but it's inaccurate, and it's blanket statements that often carry more meaning or different meaning than you meant, and then people get run over in the process. Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
There's a question we missed back there. I should say. Neuropathic wants to know, what trends in gaming do you think are the most promising? Do you see, because you follow video games, you play more video games and write about more video games than most people in the world. Have you noticed any trends that you find promising?
Trends. That's a dangerous one. I'm interested in things that come outside of trends, but I guess people talking about very explicit experiences in games, I guess just seeing more games that are from people outside of games culture, seeing really interesting like 3D, like Unity games that are kind of exploring just weird, I don't know, kind of like feelings I had when I was playing N64 games, like I said. I really liked Goblet Grotto. I feel like there is a movement towards making handmade games that are made just with like your own art and not trying to be meticulous. Like there's a movement away from meticulosity. We're seeing more cross mediums. You're seeing things like collage in RPGs with, say, Gingiva or Middens, to RPG Maker games, and so on and so on. And that's the nature of art, is to just keep mingling and stirring around in the cauldron.
A lot of people are feeling as though there's a formula to indie games that they're exhausted with. I read about that just about every day. Where, oh, it's pixel art, oh, it's retro, oh, it's a 2D platformer, puzzle platformer. And I'm already getting the sense that there's a real interest in something beyond that that'll hopefully open the door to these handmade-looking games, these non-meticulous-looking games, these more honest and trashy and proud-of-it games. that I'm certainly interested in. I hope
Certainly.
other people are too.
I would say though that yeah, I mean certainly, it is desirable that people will change their set of values, but um, we also have to be aware how the goals keep getting shifted and how capitalism and whatnot keeps endlessly redirecting itself. What was evil yesterday will be good tomorrow, because evil has the power to position itself as good. Like, it consumes things. Like, a lot of things that we admire in, a lot of things that we consume in popular culture were once avant-garde. It keeps changing. It keeps trickling. So at one point, I feel like I want to keep changing and not becoming consumed. I don't want to be complacent. I think what we find rebellious is going to become safer. And we have to be aware of that.
Sure.
Capitalism will always find a way to turn everything we love and hold dear into... Fuck.
Oh, what happened?
I don't think you can hear me, right? So,
Oh, no, you sound
okay, let's call me
wonderful.
back.
Oh, I hear you good. Oh, she's gone. Maybe she couldn't hear us. Rats. She may be popping back any second, or that might be the end of the show anyway. Man, I'm really going on a tear this time. Can't even remember what I was talking about. We'll give her a few minutes, see if she comes back, because there were a couple more questions that we didn't get to. I'm sorry, you guys. Elvac, you asked a good one. Did we get back up to that question? I heard a ding. That may be the return of Porpentine. I hope so. Porpentine, did you come back?
Can you hear me?
I could hear you the whole time. I didn't get a chance to tell you. I think you couldn't hear me.
No,
Yeah.
I have all these cables.
You were saying that what is rebellious today will not be rebellious tomorrow necessarily, and it's already getting co-opted by the big corporations, which is making
Can
me
you hear me?
Oh yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was telling me that my microphone was muted because Google Plus is dog shit. Like, let's be real, it's dog shit. Anyways,
I'm glad we're real. Yes. I was gonna. I don't know if you'd finished that thought. If
I'm done.
So,
I'm done with that thought. That thought is over.
I've been talking with mixed results, with mixed reaction. I've been talking about how Sony has really co-opted the idea of indie, for better or worse, lately. And these new consoles are out. A lot of people are saying it's the end of consoles, that people are sick of this model, that it costs more than it yields in terms of positive results.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of guessing that that might be the case. But if consoles are dead, do you think they'll just come up with another way to take more than they give?
I couldn't speculate. I'm very much a PC person myself because, I mean, it's cheap. You know, it stays around. I don't have to upgrade. I mean, I was too poor to buy consoles for a while. I don't know. I'm definitely a PC person at this point.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. Hopefully they'll keep getting cheaper too. Elvac, would you be interested in making an analog game, a board or card game or whatever?
Fuck yeah. Before I made like electronic games, I mean, I used to like do all kinds of doodles of making like board games and shit and like RPGs. I don't know. I really love I really love that stuff. I love board games a lot. I love playing RPGs like Apocalypse World and stuff like that, like lots of indie RPGs. I did kind of make a card game with someone else at one point that was like based on like kind of like being two aliens trying to date each other, but you couldn't you could only communicate with symbols, and so you'd have like a randomly drawn hand, right, of symbols and or words, and you put them together. And then you'd give them to the other person silently, and they'd have to guess if you wanted them to back off or not, or come closer, or do these different actions. So it was about dating across like language boundaries and being an alien. And if you lost, like the other alien ate you. That's how it is. That's how it is in real life.
What happens if you win?
Oh, you win. You win.
Like you two get together? There's
yeah,
love?
and then what happens after that is based on a loving, consensual relationship where you explore your own boundaries and like figure out what's up.
Sounds pretty awesome.
But that's that takes place out of the game. That's just like that's lore, you know. I'm all about the lore.
I think we're almost out of time, if not overtime a little bit. Is there anything that we missed? I hate to have been a bad host and been too stream of consciousness and forgotten to touch upon anything that you definitely wanted to talk about before we go.
If I think of it, I'll definitely think of it later tonight in my, lying in bed. At which point it'll be too late.
Well, you can always tweet about it, and I'll retweet it, and hopefully someone will retweet that tweet, and it'll continue into a wide world tweet chain that'll take over. I can hope so.
Yeah.
I had a lot of fun talking to you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Was it? Well, that's good to know. I never know how I am for people.
It's hard,
Yeah, it is almost impossible. I know what I wanted to ask. Maybe we can do it quickly. One of the things I love about your work is that it embraces being destructive in a way that doesn't... It feels charged by anger, but not by a will to cause harm to others or the kind of stereotypical power fantasy of being the alpha in a given group and ruining everyone. Is that something you gave? Is that something you believe in your own work? Do you see that? And is it something you gave conscious thought into doing? Because you have plenty of reasons to be angry. We all do. And finding use for that energy is one of the best things we can do with it instead of harming or making things worse. But there's a lot of depth and a lot of pain in your work. Is that something that...
Oh, there is. In some of my games, there is a lot of pain. I guess I'm interested in finding ways to deal with that pain without harming others. Finding grace in violent times. I mean, how to be dignified and how to live, how to process anger and how to live gracefully and true to oneself in a time that is often very undignified. We live in very undignified, dark times that ask a lot of women and place them under a lot of stress. And there's no guide to it. No one really posts a guide to being a visible woman. I don't know, it's something I think a lot about. I never really truly know after I reveal part of myself if I'll feel hurt by it, or if I'll feel hurt by the vulnerability, or if I'll feel empowered by it. And that's something I'm still working on. I want to find ways to talk about sadness, but at other times transmute that sadness into joy, into victory. And it depends so much on the situation.
I'd imagine. That slime is transformative, transmutive. It's not exactly...
I feel Armada's a happy game. I mean, it's kind of dark in some ways, but it's a really happy game. It was about exuberance for me.
Yeah, in the face of constant tombstones and miserable people.
The tombstones are really happy. They're cheerful.
Sometimes they're a little sad that they're dead.
A little sad.
Yeah.
Not every tombstone is different.
Yeah, that's true too. That's true too. They can follow you on Twitter under what Twitter handle?
Alien Dovecoat.
That's right. And you have a newish website. It was new to me anyway when I saw it.
It's the same URL, but yeah, I did a redesign because I feel like it is unfitting not to have the web presence of a goddess. It's just not right.
Indeed.
I'm just really about huge, big colors that drag you underwater and drown you at this point.
And constantly moving, never stopping your new URL. Always in there, going somewhere. The moon is a fixed point for you, which is nice. There's that moon there. What's that URL so they can look at it?
That's aliendovecote.com as well. ALIENDOVECOTE. A dovecote is where they put birds to roost. And I like the idea of a slimy alien dovecote where you have all these weird-ass birds.
I like that idea too. So much fodder for visual games that I hope to see in the future. And on Rock, Paper, Shotgun, what's the name of your column on there again?
Live Free, Play Hard. It's on there every Sunday. And
Free Indie Games as well is a place where you write pretty regularly. As for me, I'm at Tron Knots on Twitter. It's a combination of Don Knotts and Tron, which are two things I identify with for whatever reason. And
Yeah.
you can listen to the show later on iTunes. You can watch it later on YouTube, on Destructoid's YouTube channel. Just Detoid on YouTube. And I think that's it for us. I could have gone on and on. I was not getting sick of hearing you talk.
I love to talk. I just love to talk. I could talk for 10 million more years. That's me.
You've got the gift for gab. I bit my tongue when I said that. It was so stupid, but I still did it.
Why'd you bite your tongue?
I think it was a subconscious attempt to stop me from talking because it was so dumb. But I said it
No,
anyway.
don't be so hard on yourself. I think you did good. I think you did. I think we all did great here today.
I'm gonna hold on to that. Thank you, Porpentine. Take
Yeah.
care. Say
You
bye,
too.
people.